Okay, this is our second lesson in statistics for this round, and today, as I said last lesson, we're looking at box plots. So a box plot is a graphical representation of some data, and we use the 5-number summary to do that. And there's the diagram we had from last lesson, just reminding you of the 5-number summary: the minimum, the lower quartile, the median, the upper quartile, and the max. And if you need to, do go back, watch that again, and hopefully you've done a fair few questions on that and you understand how to find those. Remembering the lower quartile and the upper quartile are often the harder ones to pick because it just depends on where the median is. Okay, so let's look at data set 1 from last lesson. Yeah, there it is. That was our final slide we had on the data set, where we had a median of 5, and as you can see, we had 8 numbers on either side. So we picked the middle 2, and we then had to add them together, divide by 2. So hopefully that's all in your recall and not unfamiliar to you. Now, we're using those 5 numbers. We're going to create a box plot. So we're going to needing a scale first. You can see I've already drawn a dash there. Probably should have had this slide empty, but we've got a scale. Every box plot is drawn to scale, and on that scale, I've marked in the minimum value at 1. Just a nice line above the scale. You know, some people do it on the scale, but it's easier to see if it's above the scale. Next, I'm going to add in a line at the lower quartile, which is at 3.5. You can see the summary down the bottom of the screen there. And then I'm going to add a line in at 5 for the median, one at 8 for the upper quartile, and the one at 9 for the maximum. And that's the basics of it. We haven't finished, but they're the basics we're going to put on those 5 lines based on our 5-number summary. That's the really easy part. And the next part we're going to do is we're going to finish off the box. Now, the box always runs between the lower quartile and the upper quartile. So if I finish off the box, I'm going to draw a line on the top and the bottom from the lower quartile to the upper quartile, and it end up looking like this. And there's our box part. Some people call these box and whisker plots. So the whiskers are the last part that we do. It's easier just to say box plots. Who wants to say box and whisker plots all the time? But so we draw in the last bit, and that's just connecting the minimum and the maximum to the box, and we do that with a single line as such. And that's the whisker part, if you like. And there we go. There's a box plot. You can look at it. You can see the 5-number summary. The box part in the middle represents 50% of the data. Actually, I'll explain that in after the second example, but. Yeah, let's have a look at another one. As I've said, you've seen these before on task reports that might be sent home, or a report. So data set 2 from last lesson, in case you couldn't remember it, there it is. In this case, the middle value was the harder one to find because there were 2 numbers, but easy enough. Add them together, divide by 2 was 9, but we knew it was 9 anyway. And the 5-number summary down the bottom. So on the next slide, I've got our scale, and I've drawn in the minimum, which is at 3. Notice I haven't, my scale doesn't go any lower than that because I didn't need to. I can, but I didn't need to. Next one, I'll draw in the lower quartile at 7, the median at 9, the upper quartile at 14, and the maximum up at 18. So this time my scale's a bit longer because I needed to cater for the minimum and the maximum. Now I'm going to draw a box from the lower quartile to the upper quartile, top and bottom. And then I'm going to finish off with those whisker type bits, just joining them up so the maximum and the minimum are joined up. And there we have another box plot. Not much different to the last one. It looks pretty similar. What does it all mean? Well, there's lots of stuff we can interpret from these, but the box plot's basically showing us 25% groupings. So I put both of the box plots we just did on a common scale now, so it goes down to 1, still up to 19. Each of those sections on the box plot is 25% of the scores, quarter of the scores, quartiles, quarter of the scores. The first data set had a range of 8, so it's not as spread out as the second data set, which had a range of 15. And we can see that visually with a box plot, how spread out it is. It's easier to see that spread when we compare it to another data set. And often we will compare these. Some of the questions you're going to do asks you to compare them. So we could compare maths results between maths classes with box plots. It can be quite informative for us. You might not care about a comparison, others might. People always ask how you did compared to another class. It's handy to see some of these things. So think of those 25%, the quarters. That's the main thing to take away from there. Oh, look, here's another thing. If you look at the red data set, 50% of the scores in the red data set, so those two sections, are above all the scores from the blue data set. So the blue data set goes lower than the red data set, and all of its scores are less than 50% of the scores in the red. There's a few other things we could say based on that, but no, that's the main one. And now box plots don't have to look exactly like that. We've got nice, clean 5-figure box plots. The 5-number summary is very clear there. They can look different, and I've just popped up some there, and I actually challenged you to just think about what's happening in each of those box plots. Why do they look different? What makes them different? Have a think about it. I'll probably talk about that the next lesson I post up, just so you've had a think, you've seen some questions, and you think about what's going on. But if I have to give a hint, it's like, well, these still represent the 5-number summary, except some values in the 5-number summary are common. So have a think about it from that perspective. Okay, try to enjoy the next lesson. That must be getting a bit boring at home, but hopefully these give you a little bit to think about, whether you enjoy thinking about maths or not. Okay, cheers guys.